Listen closely. The problem isn't that you're weak, unlucky, or lacking faith. The problem is that most people can't see the battlefield. They swim in noise, opinions, notifications, gossip, and then wonder why they keep losing ground. Power doesn't belong to the loudest voice or the flashiest move. It belongs to the mind that stays calm, reads the terrain, and acts with precision. That's what we're doing today. Not greed, not tyranny. Dominion through clarity. Influence through character. Power through disciplined awareness. If you want to walk into any room and quietly command it, without begging for attention, without proving yourself to anyone, this is for you. Call these principles Machiavellian if you like. The world loves labels. But the truth behind them is older, deeper, and far more humane than people expect. These rules elevate you above manipulation because they give you control over yourself first. And once you master yourself, everything else bends. Rule 1. Master the power of silence. Silence is not a void. It's a weapon in a sheath. It's power under your control. Think about your day. You open your eyes and the world starts shouting. Messages, headlines, hot takes, arguments you didn't ask to join. The average person lives like a radio stuck on maximum volume, and then they wonder why their moves look clumsy and reactive. Silence is the counter. It's how you slow time. It's how you see the angles others miss. There's wisdom in holding your tongue, especially when you're sure you're right. The moment you rush to speak, you reveal more than your words. You reveal your tells, your impatience, your insecurities, your emotional triggers. When you talk too soon, you show your hand before the first card is dealt. You give your emotions a microphone and your opponents a map. But when you stay silent, you become unreadable. Your timing becomes sharper. Your presence becomes heavier. People start asking themselves, what is he thinking? What is she planning? That uncertainty is leverage. Most people talk to be seen. The wise stay silent to see more. Picture a lion. When does it roar? After the kill. Before that, it moves in absolute quiet, reading wind direction, watching patterns, conserving energy. It doesn't announce anything. It calculates. If you're roaring all day online, in arguments, in comment sections, you're exhausting your edge. Train yourself to hold back. Let your silence collect data. Let it pull the truth out of people who love to hear themselves speak. You don't always need to push for the reveal. If you stay quiet, most people will reveal themselves to you. Right now, some of you are living inside provocations. People poke you just to measure your control. They throw rumors, accusations, and little jabs, not because they need answers, but because they crave your reaction. Don't give it to them. You don't owe every accusation a speech. You don't owe every misunderstanding a correction. Sometimes the strongest move is no move. The sharpest answer is no answer. Let your results do the talking. Let time expose what words never could. Silence also creates room for higher signal. In the quiet, your perception sharpens. You start noticing the mismatch between what people say and what their bodies confess. You hear the tension behind their laughter. You catch the gaps in their stories. When the volume drops, the truth becomes loud. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is awareness. There's another layer to this. Posture, tone, and timing communicate more than vocabulary ever will. The world interprets symbols. A bowed head can read like humility or surrender. A steady gaze can inspire respect or trigger fear. The wise understand how they're being read and adjust with intention. That doesn't mean being fake. It means being deliberate. You're not lying, you're leading. You're choosing when to be crystal clear and when to remain a question mark. You're deciding what deserves the full story and what deserves a 5-word reply or none. When you master silence, you stop bleeding power in casual conversations. You keep your plans on a need-to-know basis. You become the person who can sit through criticism without flinching, hear gossip without biting, and walk through a storm without broadcasting your weather report to the world. People feel the strength behind your restraint. They feel your presence before you say a word. That's power. Quiet, steady, undeniable. Here's the practical application. Slow your first response. When something triggers you, inhale. Count to 3. If it still matters in 3 hours, respond with 1 sentence. If it still matters in 3 days, schedule a conversation. Most fires die without oxygen. Use strategic ambiguity. You don't owe everyone your blueprint. Share outcomes, not process. Share principles, not pressure points. Run silence drills. In meetings, on calls, in negotiations. Answer last. Let others fill the space. You'll learn more in 60 seconds of focused listening than in 10 minutes of talking. Protect your signal. Curate inputs. Turn off notifications during deep work. Create daily quiet windows where no one gets access. Silence is a training ground for authority. Silence doesn't make you passive. It makes you precise. The more you practice it, the less you'll be pulled around by external noise, and the more you'll move on your timing, not theirs. That's how you stop reacting and start orchestrating. That's how you build presence that speaks before you do. Hold the line. Speak when the room must shift, and when it doesn't, stay quiet, see more, and keep your advantage. Rule 2. Control perception. Here's the blunt truth. People don't follow truth. They follow what they believe is true. And what they believe is not shaped by facts. It's shaped by perception. That is the battlefield where power is won or lost. If you can control how people see you, you don't need to control much else. The one who shapes perception shapes the outcome. Think about this. How many brilliant, capable people do you know who remain overlooked? They've got integrity, courage, vision. But because they don't shape how others perceive them, they move through life invisible. Meanwhile, you see others, less wise, less competent. Climb ladders, attract followers, win attention. Why? Because they mastered projection. They understood that in human psychology, image often outweighs essence. That's not cynicism. It's reality. The world doesn't respond to what's hidden in your heart. It responds to what it can see. You may carry strength and clarity within you, but if others don't perceive it, they treat you as if it doesn't exist. On the other hand, even if you carry doubts, if you wrap them in confidence, you can still lead the room. Perception is the doorway through which power walks. Let's be clear. This is not about lying. It's about discernment. It's about choosing wisely what you reveal, how you present, and when you stay unreadable. Transparency without timing is vulnerability, but selective revelation is strategy. The wise don't fake, they curate. Consider posture and tone. A bowed head can look humble, or it can look weak. A steady gaze can radiate confidence or provoke unease. The difference isn't in the act, it's in the context and in how you understand others are interpreting it. The world reads symbols. If you don't shape those symbols, the world will shape them for you, and usually not in your favor. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. He knew that a king in rags could be ignored like a beggar, But place a crown on his head, and the same crowd bows. What changed? Not the man, only the perception. If you learn to shape perception, you lead without demanding. You influence without chasing. You shift the atmosphere before you even open your mouth. So, how do you do this in practice? Control your reveals. Don't feel the need to tell everyone everything. Hold back. Not every truth is for every person. Not every plan is for public discussion. Appear calm, even when you feel the storm. Leadership isn't about never doubting. It's about letting others see courage when they need it most. Use mystery deliberately. A little unpredictability makes people cautious. If they think they can read you fully, you've already lost leverage. Shape first impressions. People form opinions within seconds. Control your posture, tone, and presence in those first moments. The frame you set at the start is the hardest one to break. Remember this: perception is not vanity. It is stewardship of your influence. It is how you manage the lens through which others interact with you. If they see authority, they follow. If they see instability, they hesitate. If they see vision, they align. If they see confusion, they drift. Perception determines outcome. Rule number 3. Win the mind before you win the fight. Every battle begins long before the conflict. It begins in the mind, yours and theirs. If you don't secure that battlefield, you've already lost, no matter how strong you appear. The mind shapes beliefs, and beliefs govern every action, reaction, and decision. Think about it. A person can have all the resources in the world, skills, connections, talent. But if their thinking is fractured, they sabotage themselves. They second-guess. They overreact. They hesitate when they should strike. On the flip side, someone with clear, disciplined thinking can walk into a hostile room and shift the atmosphere without lifting a finger. Because conviction wins before action even starts. The wise don't ask, "What should I say?" They ask, "What must they believe?" That's the deeper game. If you've already won their mind, the conflict is over before it begins. Agreement, whether open or subtle, is the most powerful weapon. And when people's thoughts align with yours, resistance dissolves. This isn't manipulation, it's mastery. Every word you speak is a seed, and the mind is soil. If you want to change behavior, don't fight it directly. Change the thought behind it. Influence the belief system, and the actions follow. That's why true leaders are not just warriors. They are visionaries. They prepare by shaping thought, not by sharpening weapons. Here's how to play this level. Enter with conviction. People listen less to your words and more to your certainty. If you speak from clarity, you disarm confusion. Plant ideas, don't argue. You don't need to win every debate. You need to shift the perspective. Drop the right seed, and the mind will do the work for you. Protect your inputs. If you let fear, doubt, and negative voices dominate your thinking, you're beaten before you move. Guard your mind with the same discipline you'd guard a fortress. Use belief as leverage. Redirect someone's thought, and you redirect their actions. That's power on a higher plane. The battle of the mind is constant. It's waged every time someone looks at you and begins forming assumptions about your strength, your authority, your worth. You may not say a word, but their minds are already making judgments. The question is, did you prepare for that battlefield? Did you enter with a plan, or did you let them write the script for you? Win the mind, and the body follows. The will follows. The room follows. That's how true dominance is secured. Not through louder shouting, but through deeper conviction. Not through force, but through alignment. Because when the mind aligns, everything else bends with it. Rule 4. Exploit the weakness that pride hides. Pride is loud. Pride is polished. Pride fills the room with bold words and inflated gestures, demanding recognition. But behind all of that noise, pride is a mask. And every mask hides a weakness. The person who boasts the loudest is often the one with the deepest insecurity. Machiavelli understood this better than most. Arrogance is rarely strength. It's camouflage. Think about it. The man who constantly brags about his achievements? He's terrified you won't see his worth otherwise. The leader who insists on being right in every conversation? Beneath that force lies a deep fear of being exposed as wrong. Pride is never about abundance. It's about covering a bruise. And if you learn to see through the mask, you'll see the soft spot it protects. Most people make the mistake of fighting pride head-on. They get caught in shouting matches. They challenge arrogance directly. And what happens? The wall only grows taller. Because when you attack pride openly, you activate the very insecurity it was built to protect. That person doubles down. They become louder, more aggressive, more desperate. You don't win that way, you just get dragged into their performance. The wise play it differently. They don't try to outshout pride, they outweight it. They let pride overreach. Because here's the truth. Pride always overextends. It always stretches further than it can sustain. And when it does, it exposes the very weakness it was built to hide. Here's the strategy. Watch more than you speak. Pride loves an audience. Let it perform. Let the person talk, boast, posture. The more they reveal, the more cracks you see. Look for the trigger. Pride usually revolves around one area: a need for approval, an unresolved fear, a desperate hunger for control. Find that area, and you'll know where the fortress is weakest. Don't attack, expose. A well-placed question is more powerful than an insult. Something as simple as, "Did you mean to say it that way?" Or, "Want to clarify before I respond," forces them to either retreat or double down. Either way, they're unsettled. Stay calm. Pride feeds on reaction. If you remain still while they grow louder, you flip the dynamic. Suddenly, their overcompensation looks obvious, even embarrassing. Consider this. A proud person cannot admit fear. So when fear grips them, they act boldly but recklessly. They can't admit need, so they act independent but without support. They can't accept correction, so they act with certainty but without truth. Each of these postures eventually collapses under its own weight. You don't need to push. It will fall on its own. You only need to be patient, perceptive, and prepared to act when the moment comes. Pride's greatest fear is exposure. Its entire existence depends on performance. But when you refuse to feed it, when you simply hold the mirror up with calm precision, pride begins to suffocate. And once you see through the performance, you no longer have to fear it. You realize pride isn't a wall. It's a disguise. And disguises unravel in silence. This is not about cruelty. It's about clarity. If you want to lead, if you want to maneuver through power games without being blindsided, you must learn to look past the performance. See the wound, not the armor. Because once you see it, you hold the key. Not to destroy, but to direct. Influence flows through the cracks. Now, let's move to the final and perhaps most overlooked principle. If silence is your shield, perception is your sword, and mental clarity is your foundation, then this last rule is the cloak you wear that keeps others guessing, hesitating, and recalibrating around you. Rule number 5. Always remain the mystery they cannot solve. We live in a culture addicted to exposure. Everyone overshares. Everyone explains themselves. Everyone tries to prove their worth by giving the world their entire story. And then they wonder why they feel small, predictable, and easily dismissed. The truth, what people fully understand, they stop respecting. Predictability kills presence. Mystery protects it. The most dangerous man in the room is never the one who shouts the loudest. It's the one no one can quite figure out. The one whose silence bends the air. The one whose movements can't be anticipated. Because here's the key. What people can't predict, they can't control. And what they can't label, they can't limit. People crave certainty. They want to categorize you, box you in, know exactly what you'll do next. The moment you give them that certainty, you become manageable. And the manageable man is never respected. But the mysterious one, he forces caution. He makes people slow down, choose their words carefully, reconsider their moves. Mystery makes them adapt to you instead of you adapting to them. Mystery is not deception. It's not dishonesty. It's intentional concealment. It's choosing what to reveal and what to withhold. It's making people feel your presence without ever handing them your blueprint. It's ensuring that while they may see your fruit, they never fully see your roots. How do you cultivate mystery? Don't broadcast every move. Let actions speak for themselves. Announce after, not before. Use silence deliberately. People expect explanations. Withhold them. Let them wonder. Let them fill in the blanks. Break your patterns. Predictability is the enemy. If they always know how you'll respond, they own you. Change the rhythm. Keep them uncertain. Be selective with access. Not everyone earns the right to know you deeply. Scarcity creates value. Distance creates gravity. History proves it. The greatest leaders, the most feared warriors, the most influential thinkers, they weren't the loudest. They were the ones who let others talk while they listened. The ones who revealed only what was necessary, the ones who never showed their whole hand. They were present, but never predictable. They were seen, but never fully understood. And that aura, that uncertainty, was their power. Mystery unsettles the shallow, but strengthens the wise. It makes enemies hesitate and allies lean in closer. It bends rooms without raising a voice. And when paired with silence, perception, mental dominance, and discernment of pride, mystery becomes your final layer of armor. It makes you untouchable, not because you hide, but because you refuse to be consumed. This is how you stop being manageable and start being magnetic. You don't explain. You don't overshare. You don't let them solve you. Because the moment they think they've figured you out is the moment you've already lost your edge. Remain a question mark. Be the presence they can feel but not predict. That is the path to true dominance. We've now laid out the 5 rules. But the real power isn't in memorizing them one by one. It's in seeing how they interlock. Each principle on its own is strong, but together they form a system, a fortress around your presence, a playbook that makes you unreadable, unshakable, and untouchable. Silence as your shield. Think back. Silence was never about passivity. It was about precision. The ability to withhold reaction until the exact moment when speaking actually shifts the room. Silence protects you from being baited, from revealing your hand too early, from bleeding energy into meaningless noise. When you stay quiet, you see more. And when you see more, you control more. The loud are predictable. The silent are feared. Perception as your sword. Every room you walk into, people are writing a story about you before you even open your mouth. You can either let them write it, or you can guide the pen. Perception is leverage. It's why a crown on a man's head can transform a beggar into a king in the eyes of the crowd. It's not about fakery. It's about choosing what to reveal and when. If others don't perceive your strength, it doesn't exist for them. So you curate perception, not for vanity, but for survival. The mind as the battlefield. All conflict is psychological before it's physical, social, or financial. If you've already won the mind, yours and theirs, the fight is finished before it begins. Conviction speaks louder than volume. Planting the right thought disarms opposition without raising your voice. Mental clarity becomes the throne from which every other victory flows. Lose the mind, and you lose everything. Win it, and you've already taken the ground. Exploiting the weakness pride hides. Every fortress has a crack, and pride is often the cover for it. The boastful, the arrogant, the ones who perform their strength the loudest, they reveal more than they conceal. Don't waste energy attacking pride directly. Let it overreach. Let it reveal its own undoing. When you see the wound behind the armor, you don't need to swing wildly. One well-placed word, one calm observation, one subtle question, and the entire performance begins to shake. Pride collapses under its own weight. Your role is to notice and time your move. Mystery as your cloak. Finally, when you combine silence, perception, clarity, and discernment, you become unreadable. People can't predict you, and what can't be predicted can't be controlled. Mystery bends the atmosphere without noise. It forces others to adapt to you, not the other way around. In a world of oversharing, the person who withholds becomes magnetic. The one who breaks their patterns becomes untouchable. Scarcity creates gravity. Absence increases value. When you remain the mystery they cannot solve, you are always playing from the higher ground. Now let's connect these principles to the deeper psychology behind them. The average person craves certainty. They want labels, explanations, categories. They want to know what you'll say before you say it, how you'll react before the moment even arrives. But if you give them that predictability, you hand over control. You become manageable, and manageable people are never respected. The moment you're fully understood, you're fully exposed. And the exposed man is always vulnerable. But when you hold back, when you manage your words, shape your presence, protect your mind, discern through pride, and refuse to be solved, you create tension. Tension is power. It makes others hesitate. It makes them cautious. It makes them think twice before crossing you. And in their hesitation, you gain control. This is why people who live by impulse never last. They roar too soon. They reveal too much. They explain themselves endlessly. They chase validation. They defend their pride. They pour their entire identity into the open and then wonder why others treat them carelessly. They've made themselves predictable, and predictable is disposable. But those who live by these 5 rules operate differently. They don't roar before the hunt. They don't hand out their entire story. They don't fight every battle, and they don't answer every accusation. They move with restraint. They time their reveals. They plant thoughts instead of throwing punches. They let pride expose itself. And they never allow themselves to be fully read. This doesn't make you cold. It makes you dangerous in the best sense of the word. It makes you someone who bends dynamics without ever shouting. Someone who changes the tone of the room simply by being in it. Someone others watch carefully because they can't quite predict where you'll move next. That uncertainty, that subtle psychological tension, becomes your crown. And when all 5 rules work together, something else emerges. Presence. Not the shallow presence of being seen, but the deeper presence of being felt. When you walk in silence but command attention, when you shape perception but reveal little, when your mind is sharp, when you see through pride, when your cloak of mystery unsettles. Your presence becomes undeniable. Others may not understand you fully, but they respect you. They hesitate before speaking loosely around you. They measure their words. They wonder about your next move. That's when you know the system is working. You've stopped playing on the surface. You've started playing at depth. And depth is where true dominion lives. Here's the bottom line. These rules are not about cruelty. They're not about manipulation for the sake of ego. They're about mastery. Mastery of yourself first, so that no one else can master you. Because the truth is this: power doesn't begin when you control others. It begins when you control your reactions, your image, your timing, your words, and your presence. Most people stumble through life giving away every advantage. They talk too much. They reveal too quickly. They react too emotionally. They show their entire hand before the game even starts. And because of that, they're easy to predict, easy to provoke, and easy to discard. They become pawns in someone else's strategy. But not you, not anymore. When you embrace silence, you stop bleeding power into noise. When you shape perception, you decide how the world engages with you instead of leaving it to chance. When you win the mind first, yours and theirs, you've already set the terms of victory before the first blow lands. When you see through pride's mask, you stop being distracted by performances and start navigating the reality underneath. And when you wrap it all in mystery, you remove their ability to box you in. You become unreadable, untouchable, unforgettable. This is what it means to outsmart anyone. Not by outshouting them, not by outmuscling them, but by moving on a higher plane. By operating with such awareness and restraint that others are always a step behind, always second-guessing, always recalibrating around you. That is dominance without noise, authority without struggle, presence without explanation. Understand this: people respect what they don't fully understand. They lean in toward what they can't quite predict. They fear crossing what they cannot categorize. And they follow what they sense is steady, unshakable, and sovereign. That is the kind of person you are building yourself to be. So let the world keep scrambling for attention. Let them roar before the hunt, overshare their plans, and crumble under their own pride. You will move differently. You will carry silence like a weapon. You will shape perception with precision. You will guard your mind like a fortress. You will see through arrogance to the wounds beneath it. And you will remain a mystery, present enough to be felt, but hidden enough to stay untouchable. That is the pathway to dominion. Not the dominion of ego, but of clarity. Not the dominance of force, but of presence. You don't need to demand control, because when you live by these rules, control follows you. Walk in quiet power. Lead with insight, not impulse. Carry the kind of presence that unsettles the shallow, but steadies the wise. And let your silence, your mystery, your clarity, and your restraint become the crown no one can take from you. That's how you outsmart anyone. That's how you rise above the chaos. That's how you win without ever needing to announce it.